Well, let's talk about who's partially responsible for the next segment, which was the one that made the news, of, if anything, on this program did. And that was the interview and the segment with Sting. And should we give a spoiler alert at the top? The gist of this, and we'll talk about it, was that Sting has announced when his retirement will be. He's going to retire at Revolution 2024. That's going to be his last match. What month of the year is that in? When do they do Revolution?
You know, they never
Anybody
said
say?
that. Yeah, they never said that on the pay-per-view. I'm looking. This year it was in March. It was March 5th.
So he may only have 6 months or thereabouts, not even. Tony Schiavone was in the ring this time. He gave him a big introduction, not like Don, but gave him a big introduction, how much it means to Tony to introduce this man from all the years history they've had together. This is Sting. And Sting comes out, and after Tony has given him this big introduction and how much Sting means to him, Sting takes the microphone and Tony fucks off and doesn't even stand there and wait to do any part of this. But now I know why we never let him talk too long. I actually knew that beforehand, but it was driven home here. The people love him. He's an icon. This was brutal. It was a news-making thing, to say the least. Sting has been a wrestler since 1985. That would be 39 years in 2024. One of the biggest stars in the history of the modern business. He's going to retire. I felt I had to watch this out of respect, but Jiminy Christmas. The wandering around and Sting has never had a great promo voice to lay down the law or to swear revenge or whatever. When he was young and he had the body and the hair and the howl, and it's showtime, and the energy that carried it. But having to give a long or detailed explanation, having to have something flow kind of naturally and or logically, going a long period of time in his own particular monologue, these are not and have never been Sting's strengths. And they put him out there to kind of say what he had to say and what came to him. And it seemed like a lot of it was coming to him off top of his head. But that was the bottom line. Revolution 2024 will be his last match. He mentioned the word retirement that he wasn't going to mention about 500 times. And his go-home line was potentially as flat a go-home line as I've ever heard. Because he had made a point in his promo of saying what he said in his Hall of Fame and his previous retirement or whatever. The one thing for sure about Sting is nothing's for sure. And his go-home line here was, the one thing for sure about Sting's retirement is it's for sure. It was a 10-minute segment, and it felt like 30 minutes. And please tell me if I'm overstating this case.
I mean, yes and no. He's not a skilled talker. And when I say that, I mean, he doesn't put together a coherent story. Whatever he's saying, there's no beginning, middle, and end. There's no, I'm going this way. It's just free form. I'm going to throw out names, and I mean, it was another retirement speech.
It worked for Sting he blessed, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and all the people that helped him, but it was Sting as a young guy was wild and crazy and chaotic, and he could get away with being all over the place. But now it's like he's kind of just rambling, right?
Well, what I was going to say is I thought he was rambling. And this isn't the first time we've seen something like this from him. This is Sting. He's not going to turn into a great promo now. But with that said, the fans didn't chant boring. They hung on his every word because you could tell it was going somewhere.
Yeah.
It was just taking, he had a process to go through to get there. And it was a forgiving audience because he is a legend. And I think a lot of people figured out this may be the beginning of his goodbye.
Well, it had been leaked, rumors and innuendos and, whispers on the internet before. And the way that he started it, they kind of figured something was going to go on. But yes, they love him and he got by with it. If it had been somebody saying the same thing that wasn't over, my God, they would have got the giant hook from a vaudeville show and jerked him out of the ring by that point.
I mean, that's the only other thing, I guess. I mean, knowing how Tony Khan does things, I could see him just saying, say whatever you want out there. But if you're Sting, there's a retirement speech and then there's announcing either a retirement tour or retirement, it's like a celebration for the next several months. I'm not sure what it is, but he gave the retirement speech. Well, this wasn't necessarily, again, people liked it, but for me,
yeah,
I'm with you. I just thought it was just me.
Well, and that's, I can believe that Tony would tell some of these guys, depending on who he tells almost everybody that, but especially the legends that he respects, that he grew up watching as a fan. Oh, just go out and do it however you want to do it. That's exactly what you don't say to some legends in order to respect them to the level that they deserve, because you have to be able to differentiate between guys that can go out and say anything off the top of their head and make it gold, Mick Foley, and guys like Sting, who you should show them the respect that their name and iconic status should provide them by giving them guidelines, parameters, bullet points, things to say, not giving them too long, not letting them go out there and twist or whatever. Prepare a little something to help them get through it. And you got to know which ones are which. And Tony doesn't. He assumes everybody he looks up to and was a fan of is the greatest talent in the history of wrestling. And that's why we get some of these segments.
What should it be? You have months to build it up. It is a pay-per-view event. Should it be Sting in a main event match? Should it be Sting in the mid-card in a tag match? Should it be a ceremony with his famous rivals in attendance? What do you think it should be?
Maybe a little bit of all of that. If you've got 5 or 6 months, say, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where if they had somebody to speak for the promotion instead of Tony, because I don't advocate Tony doing anything on microphone or camera anymore, but say, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a celebration of the career of Sting. Sting has written down the names of 3 individuals that he would like to face before he closes his career out. And we're going to present those matches in various of our programs, whether live or pay-per-view, over the next 6 months, culminating at Revolution. And maybe he does the first 2, and then something happens in the second one that leads to an angle, personal issue, him and Darby one more time against so-and-so and such, or whatever the fuck, the big match that has heat behind it for Revolution. And, that way, and you say that Sting will be going on the tour to promote this so we can be on television and you can advertise him one last time, Seattle, see Sting, or one last time, Poughkeepsie, or wherever the fuck they're at. You're going to see him. He might not wrestle, but you're going to see him. He's going to be involved. It's part of his tour. And do a whole promotion around it. Make sure his last match is the hot one and the meaningful one. And, again, he wins the first one. The second one gets thrown out some reason because of whatever you're doing. And then the last one, he and his partner win together. And it gives the rub to Darby, if that's who it's, or whoever the fuck it may be.
But he's got to win, you think?
You got to win the last one, but at the same time, I didn't say the last one was a singles match. If you advertise him in 3, the first 2 are singles, he wins the first one. The second one is an angle with no finish, and the third one is the tag team match at Revolution, where he and his young cohort prevail, and then they drop the fucking streamers or the balloons or the ice or snow or whatever the fuck. And that's a nice little, and that's just off top of my head. We could polish this if we had an hour or two. But something to promote the next 6 months. And every time you see him, whether he's wrestling or just appearing on television or speaking or autographs or whatever, it's part of that retirement tour. It's special. The last time in each of these individual locations. And then make sure you buy the pay-per-view. It's Sting's last match. It's not that hard to fucking sit down and figure out the basics, and then how do you plug it in?